This is the Brandon Smith Show, and of course, I'm your host, Brandon Smith, and the entire purpose of the show is always one singular thing, and that's to help you live a life that much more free from dysfunction. So today, our topic today is improv and improv theater, and how improv can help us live a better life personally and professionally. So guide us on this expedition. Improvisational. Can you have an improvisational expedition, Jim?
You can.
You can?
We're on it.
We're on it, folks. You're on it with us.
Yep.
You may not realize you signed up for that, but hold on tight. So to join us is a good colleague, friend, Jim Karwisch. You said just like you're wishing for a car.
Just like you're wishing for a car.
Just like you're wishing for. I told him, I said, you can't do that with Smith.
Yeah.
It's like you can't see Smith. It's Smith. So Jim Karwisch, and so Jim, just to make sure I get your title right, because I've seen Jim do some awesome stuff in improv, like doing this with teams, and he is a master. But formally, on your bio that I have, highly regarded facilitator and consultant, focusing on the application of improvisation to teamwork and leadership. Really cool.
Yeah. It's pretty cool.
I feel like I need an autograph or something.
I'll give you one. I'll sign it somebody else's name, and you'll be like, Babe Ruth.
Babe Ruth.
Awesome.
He's not wishing for a car. So, Jim, I'm so thrilled to get you on here today to talk about this, because improv is something that I preach to my clients, and I've seen you do some really awesome work with groups and teams on this. So before we dive into our topic of improv, for those that aren't familiar, and we kind of make it simple, tell us a little bit about you. How did you get into this?
Sure. It started when I was a kid, and I, without knowing it, was someone who desired to be improvising all the time. I found theater first and fell in love with it right away. I got to pretend to be other people. I got to live in a fantasy world, right? Like you didn't have to grow up. You got to go and spend all of your time. The work that you were doing was always play. Even at its hardest, it was always the effort moving forward with a group of people towards a common goal, and everybody knew what that goal was at all times. So it's just always really, really a powerful thing. And then, so I did improv when I was young. I did improv in high school. I did improv classes in college. And then I thought to myself, I guess I'm a theater guy, not an improv guy. I thought I was an improv guy, but I really wanted improv to be something that wasn't just about comedy. I wanted it to be about more. And I was on a theater tour with a couple of tour mates of mine. We were doing a show all around the U.S., and we happened to stop in Chicago for a single night. And somebody said, do you want to go see a show? And I'm a theater person, so I'm thinking they're going to take me to a theater show. And they take me to Improv Olympic in Chicago. And I see what long-form improv is. And I see how all of these people are working together, creating this huge, long show based on a single suggestion. And I thought, okay. There are people out there that are doing what I want to do. And so I quit theater, and I moved to Chicago, and I got a day job, and I just started studying improv. And
wow.
From that point on, that was back in late 1999. At that point in time, it was all about studying improvisation, how it can apply to our lives, to our work, how we can be better human beings to one another and with one another using improvisation. But during the day, I was always this fix that I was getting, this drug that I was taking of improv needed its funding. So I was in business, right? So I went out and got a day job. Instead of being in theater, suddenly I'm in the business world. And so that
And what kind of functions did you have?
At the very beginning, it was thanks to my mom. She said, I know you're in theater and I know that's what you want to do, but if you can learn to type quickly, and if you can run any Microsoft program, you'll always be able to find a job. So when I got to Chicago, I said, okay, who's hiring? I can do like admin stuff. And I just took an admin job at a company in the John Hancock building, a PR firm out there.
Wow.
And just started out as an admin to fund that evening improv study.
Cool.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So then now today, you're back to doing improv full time.
Yeah. In 2014, I was given that opportunity by my mentor, Allison Gilmore of DuMore Improv. I was leaving the corporate world. I made a big shift in my career where I said, you know what? I'm not going to do what I thought I was going to do for the rest of my life. I thought I was going to teach improv in the evenings and be an improv mentor to students who were going to do improv for performance, right? And that I would be positively affecting people's lives in the theater. But after a while, I realized it's just one of the hardest things to try and make a living at, is just to do improvisation, to run a training school, to keep a theater open and funded is incredibly difficult. So after 10 years of working a theater in the evenings and working a day job during the day, I said, I'm just going to go out on my own. I'm going to use everything that I've learned so far in life, and I'm just going to go out and not do the standard day job anymore. I'm going to see what improv can do in other ways. And at that same exact moment, Allison Gilmore walked into my life, and I was coaching an all-female team that she was on. I was teaching them a very specific way of interacting with one another, building some skill sets out. And as we were walking out to the parking lot, she said, do you have any extra time where you could do one of these things? And she started to talk to me about what DuMore Improv was. And I said, well, it just so happens that I've just made the commitment in life to go out and do exactly that. So she opened a door wide for me and said, step in, let's go. Let's teach improv.
How cool.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'm ready.
Okay.
I'm ready to rock and roll. Let's talk about improv.
All right.
So for folks out there that say this improv thing, that sounds kind of, I don't know why I made folks kind of grumpy.
Yeah, folks are grumpy, aren't they? Without improv, folks are grumpy, but then we can have a different voice.
So they're grumpy because they haven't had improv yet, and they don't know what this improv thing is.
Yeah.
How would you kind of open this door into improv and explain it to people on kind of what it is?
Yeah.
And then we can dive more into kind of the principles of it.
Sure. So improvisation, when it comes to performance, is really, really simple. You're standing there in front of an audience of people that have paid to watch you do what you do, and you don't have a script, and you don't have any idea what the content of this 2-hour-long show is going to be. And you look across the stage and you see your scene partner, and you connect eyes with them, and then you think, all right, step by step, line by line, action by action, we're going to build a story together in front of this audience, and we're going to try and make it interesting and fun and dramatic and really connect with them on an emotional level while also making them laugh, possibly. And so the reality of it is you're going to say or do something, and I'm going to make whatever you say or do absolutely brilliant. I'm not going to judge it. I'm just going to accept it as if it were the most brilliant thing that could ever be said by any human being. And it's exactly perfect and right in this moment. And I'm going to build something on top of it.
Jim's coming on my show from now on, folks.
That's right. I'll be here every day.
Every day.
Every
He's going to be on the
day.
show every day.
Yes.
It doesn't matter what I say. He has to accept it as the most brilliant thing in the world and then build on top of it.
Well, now, I know I have seen you work as well, and I have seen you in front of crowds. I've watched your show, The Brendan Smith Show, and I can tell you that even if you haven't studied improvisation, you work from an improv mindset already. You're somebody who already listens, accepts, and always is moving forward with it, whatever it is. Whenever you're with a guest, whenever you're doing an interview, you're always accepting what they're saying for what it is and building up and building forward at all times. So that's one of the reasons why.
Well, thanks, man.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm an improv guy.
You are. You're a master, and you should start teaching classes
know.
tomorrow about improv. Just don't worry about any of this.
Oh, I don't know about that.
Don't worry about any of this amazing success you've got elsewhere. Just go try and open up a theater and keep it running, for 10 years if you can.
I'm up for a challenge.
That's right.
All right. So when you're teaching classes on improv, what are some principles? You talked about the kind of the overarching philosophy.
Yeah.
What are some general principles or tips that we could even talk about today that people could start to weave into their workplace?
Sure.
Because it sounds like even that general philosophy, man, we need more of that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, imagine if when you were in a meeting, people around you held this belief that whatever comes out of your mouth, they're going to accept it and treat it as if it at least has a spirit of brilliance, and they're going to try and build on it.
Yeah.
I want to go to that meeting, and I don't say that about meetings.
Yes.
So I can see a huge value in this. So what are some other kind of tactics or steps that you might teach someone who wanted to learn improv?
So the very, very first thing is I teach them how to listen the way that improvisers listen, right? So we're taking in information that is valuable at all times. We don't see our own thoughts as being the primary driver. It's our thoughts plus your thoughts, right? My thoughts plus your thoughts plus what the audience says plus what anybody else in the show says. It's all of this information is extremely important, right? So just around us in this room, right? As soon as I sat down, my improv brain immediately says, well, what is this? What do all these objects that are around me say about Brandon? Right? He obviously loves The Office.
Unmedicated,
yes.
folks. Unmedicated.
But you've got Superman. You've got Dwight in several different places. You've got Bob Ross.
Bob Ross.
You've got Bob Ross. So like
one of my favorite bobbleheads.
So many of the things that are around us, the Yeti over there, like all of these things build into a story. And if I'm paying attention and I'm really thinking that all of these specific pieces of information combine together to make something that's true, that's essentially improvisation. So everything that's said or done around me, I look at it and I say, it's not just face value. It's not just what you said. It's also the theme of what you said. It's also how can I craft something out of what you said. It's also what might be your motivation for saying such a thing. So even if you're, say we were on stage and the other actor said something like, I guess it's a good day. If I am just moving about at rapid pace in the corporate world, I might completely not even register that you said anything at all, right? But in an improv world, I'm not just listening to what you said, I'm listening to how you said it. I'm paying attention to your body language. I'm seeing if I can connect with you in some way. And so whenever I go into a meeting, whenever I go in to facilitate a group of people towards a goal, or whenever I'm coaching one-on-one, I'm always trying to connect and listen in a way that says, whatever it is that you're saying right now is the most important thing that could possibly be said. And not in a pressure-filled way, like you need to say something important, in an accepting way that says, the core of whatever you're giving is brilliant.
So listening, I'm hearing it's like that being, but what I loved about that though, that I didn't expect you to say, was it's not just necessarily listening with your ears, it's listening with your eyes too. So you're looking at the data around you, like the space you're in and what that might be telling about that story or that environment or the person, how they're saying it, how they're dressed.
Yes.
All those things are important pieces of data that all come together. That help you kind of think about how do I need to react in the moment. It's taking kind of emotional intelligence and applying it. I'm going to be super, very aware. And I'm going to kind of read those social cues and move based on that.
If there were a Venn diagram of the work that DuMore Improv does, and you took improv and you took emotional intelligence, the two would overlap almost entirely. When I first started learning about emotional intelligence and I started to see how what I did applied to it and how it applied to what we did, I was amazed. I was thinking, oh, clearly emotional intelligence was created by an improviser. This must be something that stems from improv. And it really was just, there are truths about humans, how humans can behave, and there are truths about how humans tend to behave. And those don't line up all the time. So what you're capable of on a daily basis, what your mindset is capable of, if it's going in a sense of I'm listening, I'm accepting whatever it is you're saying, I'm deferring judgment for the moment, I'm taking your truth and I'm just going to embrace it, right? And I'm going to listen to you 100%. Then so many of the other problems or toxic behaviors just fall away. Defensiveness falls away. When people recognize that you're just 100% there for them, they open up. They give you more than they might give to somebody else who they can tell is judging them, even if they've got a smile on their face, or even if they're patting them on the back and saying, hey, you can trust me. They're proving moment by moment that you can't trust them. Right?
Yeah. So one more thing I'm hearing in this too is that first step of listening with acceptance, it disarms people and then it actually prompts them to give you more information.
That's right.
Which is super valuable. Okay, so we're going to come back after break and talk about kind of another kind of tactic or tip that we can take away from improv. So stay tuned. We'll be right back. And when we come back, Jim is going to educate us on becoming improvisational masters. I love the way that sounds. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Hey everyone, this is Brandon. I hope your 2018 is everything you'd hoped it would be. That said, we could all use a tune-up. Go to my site, theworkplacetherapist.com, www.theworkplacetherapist, all one word, .com, for a library of resources for you. You can find past shows, blog posts on navigating workplace dysfunction, and even my TED Talk on the contagiousness of emotions in the workplace. And that's not all. There are the Workplace Happiness Workbooks to help you find happiness in your job, and even a tab to Ask the Therapist, where you can ask me anything on your mind. We all need a tune-up once in a while. Get yours today. All right, welcome back. Of course, this is the Brandon Smith Show. You know what you're listening to. And I'm your host, Brandon Smith, and today we are talking about improv. And so I've got a great colleague and friend, Jim Karwisch, like you're wishing for a car, talking about improv. And we already talked about kind of that first important step, about kind of listening with acceptance and really noticing all that data, and that disarms people, prompts them to actually want to give you more information. What are other kind of improv tips you could give us?
Sure. So once we get past listening and acceptance, and we're moving into trying to collaborate together, one thing that is, I think, the most applicable thing to how people view time and how valuable time is. I was just out, when I was in the lobby, I was watching one of your shows where you talked about how that's a commodity. I think you were with someone from SHRM, and you were discussing how time is a commodity. It's the thing that everybody wants more of, and everything's fast paced. And so people will get together and they'll do a meeting for an hour-long block, because that's how long meetings last. They do an hour-long block because that's what Outlook gives you to schedule almost immediately, right? And so one of the things about improvisation is iterative thinking, right? So if you and I can accept a truth, even if on face value we might not think it would work, if we run through this idea as if it would work, and we just really quickly flesh it out and just, I call it trying to give it legs, right? See if it'll walk. If we go very quickly through the idea and try and make it walk, we have just saved ourselves all of the time that would normally be spent where one person is telling the other person, that's not going to work, and let me tell you why it won't work, right? So if we can spend 30 minutes coming up with 15 ideas that 14 of them don't work, but one of them does, or we can spend an hour bickering about what ideas might work and what ideas might not work, we've saved ourselves half an hour, right? And we've gotten to a place where if some of those ideas don't work, we know why they don't work. And the reason they don't work is because we discovered it as we played together. We listened, we accepted, we built on each other, we made it the best it could possibly be. And then we said, okay, that's one idea. That's one possibility. Let's set it over here. Let's try another one. What about this? How about if it went this direction?
So how do you do that? When you're in that discussion, how do you stop the natural tendency to say, well, you just threw out this idea, Jim. It's not going to fly.
Right.
Let me tell you all the reasons why
Yes.
that's not going to work.
And that's basically the core tenet of all improvisation is yes and. And so that's what Allison
I was
and
waiting for this to come.
Yes,
I'm so happy. I'm so happy.
You walked me right up to it. You said, Jim, why don't you talk about yes and in a very clever way? So, yes.
Did I tell you he's coming on my show every week, folks?
Every week.
Every week. Every week, folks.
So yes and is all about telling people that you have a very brilliant way of looking at the world that might be something different than how someone else looks at the world. You might be a very analytical thinker that as soon as you hear an idea, your first reaction to it is to judge it. And that has a value. There is value in judging whether ideas should be accepted or not and moved forward with or not. But right this second is not the time to apply that skill set. Right now is the time to see how far we can get with a particular idea by building it. We're only going to move up. We're only going to go layer by layer by layer. So if your tendency is to say, let me tell you why that won't work, just defer that for a little while. just put that on pause for a second, because we can use that skill set when it comes time. Once we've got all these ideas out there, once we've been divergent about our thinking, we're going to need to be convergent, and you're going to need that skill set. So don't turn it off or judge it to be bad or think of it as, well, now, this new improv mindset says that I can't judge things or that I can't be analytical. No. It just says that right this moment, while we're discussing this new idea, we're going to do everything in our power to build it.
Yeah. I love that. So if I took that and put that into corporate speak or workplace speak, I would say be really intentional about either the purpose of a meeting or a purpose of a portion of a meeting and set rules around to support that purpose.
Yes.
So you might say in this beginning, we're going to do some brainstorming for the next 30 minutes. So these are the rules of how we're going to do that. We're going to say yes and. We're not going to judge anything. We're going to create as many ideas as we can.
Right.
In the second 30 minutes, we might then put on our judgment hats and feel comfortable to do that. But it's setting those rules and tie it to the purpose. Is that a fair?
That's very, very fair. Now, you mentioned hats when you just said that, and the 6 thinking hats, are you aware of that?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So it's essentially the same thing as saying, here's the hat we're going to wear for this period of time, then we're going to shift and we're going to wear this other hat. Right now, we're going to think analytically. Right now, we're going to think creatively. Right now, we're going to say what we fear about this. We're gonna look at what risks might be involved. But to start with, let's not look at the risks. To start with, let's look and see what we could do if we had $1 million, if we had an unlimited workforce. Let's just see what we could do. Because what happens a lot of times is when people have no limits, they respond differently than if they have been in a box for a while, right? So when they tell you what they want with infinite funding and infinite resources and infinite workforce, they'll tell you what they believe, what they think, what they hope, right? They'll tell you what's going on deep inside them, and they'll tell you what they're wishing for. Yeah. And that often is different than the thing that they feel like could happen. So if you say, we're going to do this, we're going to try out this new idea, their first thing is, let me tell you how many times we've tried that particular idea. But the truth of it is if you really ask them what they wished that idea would work. So we just tap into that wish. We tap into the fact that if all the things that normally stop you from being able to do this weren't there, would you want this to happen? What would be the next thing that you would want to happen? And then once people get really creative and energized and they all get going with these ideas, their ability to think their way around problems grows exponentially, right? They start to get really creative about how to get past their previous failures. Oh,
I've got so many good ideas I'm thinking of right now.
You're improvising in your head.
I'm improvising in my head.
Yes.
Okay, so all right, so that's our second one. So our second one really is kind of that deferring judgment and being intentional about that,
right?
So you can build. Is there another tip or tactic that we could take away that would help us?
Yeah. So the third thing really is about trust, right? So trust is a commodity that I can build. It's something that if I work with you this one time and I set you up to feel amazing about working with me. So let's just jump back in the podcast a few minutes ago when you got excited and said, I'm going to ask Jim to be on my podcast every week, even though that's a joke. It is.
He was sad when he said that. I was reading I was listening to his facial expressions. He didn't look happy. Oh, now his bottom lip is sticking out. If you're listening, it's a really sad look.
Really, really sad look. But the truth of it is that you saying, Jim, I would like you to be here all the time. What you're really saying is that I feel like I can trust you. I feel excited about working with you. I want more of this vibe. So if somebody comes to you and you're a manager and you have that vibe, whatever you say to me about this next complaint that you have to make or concern that you have to make or new idea that you're bringing to me, I'm going to accept everything the same way. I'm going to invite you into my office. I'm going to have you sit down. I'm going to offer you, a glass of water or a cup of tea, and I'm going to accept 100% whatever your truth is. You go ahead and tell it to me. And you don't need to worry that I can't tell you about this particular problem because I know that you're friends with that person, right? Sure, you can tell me that thing because they're my best friend and I know their tendencies. I know who they are and I'm willing to listen to you. And I'm also willing to help mediate this thing later on if there's a problem, right? I'm not biased and you can't trust me because of who else I support. I support everyone. I'm accepting of all information, and I'll defer judgment for the moment and really be there 100% for you. And then when we're done with that, then we'll look, how do we move forward, right? How do we take next steps in whatever this is together? So once you feel accepted, once you feel that I'm really listening to you, a little switch flips on. And the next time that you feel like you need to talk to somebody, you're likely to choose me. You're likely to want to collaborate with me or talk with me or have me facilitate your meeting or have me coach you through a problem.
I like that. So trust can be a byproduct of that. Fully acceptance, fully present, listening without judgment kind of thing. It was interesting. There was a study several years ago. A consultant was doing a piece of research and he wanted to know what made a really good boss. And so he asked all these questions, had a survey, and he was doing, kind of really thoughtful kind of questions in the survey. And then I don't know what kind of came over him, but he added a final question that he thought was kind of a throwaway question. And the question was this: after spending time with your boss, how do you feel? Turns out that question had the highest correlation to a person being a great boss or not.
Absolutely.
Was how do you feel after you leave that office? Do you feel accepted, and do you feel listened to, or do you feel kind of judged or beat down or whatever that happened to be? So I think that's a great point that we can take away. Are we bringing that spirit with not just as a boss, but also to our coworkers and to our family and friends? Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So when I speak into your truth, right, I listen to you first. I usually try to, and this is hard for me because I'm a big talker. I talk, right? But I try when I'm listening to someone, I can tell that what they need is listening. I defer judgment and I try and just listen quietly with just, with little nods and and those types of things, encouraging them to go along.
Practicing our nodding, folks.
Yes, practicing our nodding. But the moment that they feel like, that's it. I've told my story to you. I feel good. I feel listened to. If I can then start to speak truth into that story from my perspective or from someone else's perspective, their ability to receive someone else's truth into their story is so much more open because they've gotten to tell their story. A lot of times people are holding on so tight to their own story that they don't want to hear other people's stories. They don't want to hear that they might have, because once we admit that perhaps our story is a little bit biased, like perhaps we've put ourselves into a story where we've made ourselves the victim, when the truth of it is that we're not really the victim, or maybe we've made somebody else a villain when they're not really a villain. We're willing to listen back, and we're willing to accept that maybe our story might be a little bit off. And maybe that we could give somebody else a little bit more grace, or we could accept their position, or what their agenda is, or what their motivations are, and so fully listening, developing that trust, and then them knowing for a fact, if it's not the first time we've met, them knowing for a fact that at some point in time I'm going to speak truth back into what they say from my perspective or from somebody else's perspective. They're ready to hear it then.
Yeah, almost feels like an invitation for co-creating something when you do this well.
I think of everything. My coach, her name is Erica Marks, and she loves that my viewpoint on the world is always building up. Right? We're going to build everything up, and the things that need to be dropped or need to be taken away because maybe they're too risky. Oftentimes in the work that I do, you don't need to point at anything and say, that's bad, we shouldn't do it. It actually just drifts away and never gets done because it's not the thing that's clearly what we should be doing. So as we build up and up and up and up, certain things just build up to a certain point and they can't go any further. But one idea just keeps building. Wow. And that's when you get to it. And you say, so everybody in the room gets to say, look what we just built, without having to say, let me show you 14 ideas that didn't work and why they're bad. And let's all go through a very tight list of minutia about how all of these things won't work. We don't even need to look at that board. Somebody erase that because we've got this idea that we've worked on together that we want to present to our boss. Super cool. So we're getting already, we're almost out of time. So are there any final points around improv you want to make sure we talk about today? Really, I mean, if you can just focus on listening without judging what the other person is saying, accepting whatever they say, and then trying to make them look brilliant for saying it, you're on the right road.
Yeah.
in most ways.
So I will say a therapist kind of trick that can
Sure.
help people with that is just try and paraphrase back what you heard.
Absolutely.
So what I heard you say was, da, 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 da.
And you do that in your interviewing as well. When you're speaking with somebody on the podcast, you'll say back the points that you heard. And when I hear you repeat back something I said, I feel like $1 million, right? He just repeated back what I said, and he validated it, and he applied it to the business world. That makes me feel great. I want to keep sharing. I want to make this a 2-hour podcast. We can do that, right?
We can yeah. We'll just take all the governors off, Isaac. We're going.
That's right.
We're going to go until we can't. There was a great Seinfeld episode where Kramer was testing out cars. He said, I wonder how far this car can go in a full tank of gas. And so he and the guy at the dealership just drove it on the highway until it was way past E. And then they finally died on the highway.
That's awesome.
Kramer's like, okay, I figured it out. And he walks off. So I ask all my guests this final question. What is a good life hack for us in terms of helping us have healthier lives, more dysfunction-free, whether it's personal or professional? What would be something we could do?
Everybody that is at your office or around you in your life, anybody that bugs you, that irks you, that they're not your favorite person to be around, think about that person and deliberately go have an interaction with them where you yes and them. Deliberately go have an interaction with somebody that you don't care for very much.
It sounds so aggressive when you say it. Like, I'm going to go yes and you.
Yes, I'm going to go yes and that person.
I'm going to yes
the
and
number of times.
Yes and.
Yeah, I'm somebody who likes harmony. I'm somebody who I don't shy away from conflict if conflict is needed, but I like harmony. I enjoy having a harmonious workplace. And if there's ever somebody that just doesn't seem to get me or doesn't seem to like me, or we just rub each other the wrong way, then I'll just deliberately say, okay, I don't really want to be around this person. That means that I need to be around this person. I need to look at them as a human being first. I need to figure out what it is that's misaligned between the two of us. Because I can tell from a glance, they're not a bad person. We just don't resonate with each other the right way, and it makes things difficult. So I'm deliberately going to go and speak with somebody that I don't feel like I resonate with, or maybe I can just say, I don't like that guy. Right? I'm going to move forward and I'm going to have an intentional interaction with that person where I try to build them up, listen to their story, ask them something specific about themselves. Maybe I don't know. Ask them how many kids they have or what their name means. That's a big Alison Gilmore thing is. Just ask them what's the meaning of their, tell me the story of your name is a big Alison Gilmore thing. Alison is my mentor. She's somebody who is constantly having interactions with people who normally have thankless jobs. And by doing so, everybody will talk to her when she needs something. And they'll drop whatever it is that they're doing to talk to Alison because she's done the same for them. So
Nice.
She tries to have that relationship with everybody. And that's what I try and do as well.
Good segue to my last question for you. So if people want to learn more about the work you do and Alison does and how they can kind of connect with you guys, where can they go?
DuMoreImprov.com. That's DuMore improv.com.
Do more like D-U, not D-O. D-U.
Not like D-O. Yeah, it's Alison Gilmore. Her name is Alison Dukes Gilmore. She took the D-U from Dukes and the more from Gilmore. So she made Do More.
I never knew that story.
Yeah. Do More Improv. And when she tells the story of her name, that's what she kind of tosses that into the story of her name, and you get the background of the company at the same time.
Awesome. Well, Jim, it's been phenomenal. I'll have to have you back.
Absolutely.
Next week, every week. Remember, folks?
Every
week, Jim's
Always.
coming on. Always, forever.
I'm just that corner over there. We'll just get a pillow and a blanket.
Hanging out in the corner. He can chip in. Thank you. This was tremendously helpful.
It's a
I'm
great
so
time.
passionate about the work you all do and the difference you make in people's lives. I'm glad you were able to kind of give this gift to all my listeners and viewers.
Wonderful.
So for those of you listening and viewing, thank you for keeping up the fight against dysfunction every week. And of course, continue that fight. And you can follow us on Twitter at the WP Therapist, iTunes for those of you who aren't listening, at thebrandonsmithshow.com. And we do drop a new show every week. And of course, if you just want additional resources, you can go to my website, theworkplacetherapist.com. Google The Workplace Therapist. There's only one. You'll find it really easily. So until next week in our next show, have a great week and an awesome life.